So, we are now week 3 into our deep study of the greatest commandment that God gave us, which is to do what? All right, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? So we've been really digging into this, and I don't know about you guys, but I know for me this has been a really enlightening study so far, right? We spent some time, we talked about loving the Lord your God with all your heart, which we talked, in detail about how that's not the emotional component, but that's loving God with all your will, like your will and your drive. And what does that look like to love God with your will and your drive? We talked about loving God with all your soul, which was, I think that was a pretty good, just in deep study on what it means to love God with our soul. And what does that mean to love God with all your soul? With your entire being, with all of who you are, not just this Casper the Friendly Ghost spiritual woo thing, but also what? Your actual physical presence, right? Because God created you you're all of you to be connected to who? To Him. And so our soul is longing and thirsting to be connected to God. And we had a pretty great discussion, I think, at midweek, just further deep dive into what that looks like to love God with all of our soul and the consequences, right, of not doing it, which I thought was really good. So the next thing on the list is to love God with all your mind. And we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about that next Sunday. And actually, Kate will be preaching on loving God with all your mind at Princeton University. So that'd be a great opportunity there for the students to kind of, we're on their turf. So I'm like, go for it. So that'll be exciting. So today we're going to skip mind and talk about loving God with all your strength. Okay? And so loving God with all your strength. What does it mean to love God with all your strength? What is strength? Let me ask that question. What is strength? Okay, energy. All right. Love God with, okay, I can see that. What else? What is strength? Power, right? Like having some power, right?
Endurance.
Okay, a little endurance, right? Loving God with your strength. Strength is power, it's endurance, it's energy, right? Whenever I think of strength, I think of, this Grace right here. I think of this scene here. I want to play this in Avengers, one of my favorite movies here. Anyone remember? There we go. Strength. This is what I think about. That's strength. When I think of strength, right, that's what comes to mind for me. The Bible talks about this concept of strength, and so we think of strength, okay, well, when you think of power, right, you think of like Hulk, smash, things, right? That's what I can say. So it says, love God with all your strength. My mindset tends to go to, well, this is what strength looks like. And so I think in order for us to have a more holistic definition of strength, I think it's probably good to kind of ask strong people what strength is. So I want us to watch this and I want us to listen to it, so I hope the volume works a little bit to kind of help illustrate this for us. But this should help us kind of get a good definition.
So I think strength is people who have done it long enough and have had all the hardships and are still able to do it.
It's being able to handle the good times and being able to handle the bad times. And with life in general, you're going to have ups and downs, peaks and valleys. You have to stay pretty neutral as far as not getting too crushed by your down times and not getting too high with the good times.
It's just an ability to do things that are challenging, whether it's courage or whether it's like, our sport defines it pretty clearly, lifting weights and that sort of thing.
The capacity, I think, to overcome
some type of obstacle, whether it's physical or mental, where you kind of like dig in and question yourself of trying to achieve a task, whether it's life, in the gym, family or whatever, and all these like stresses that can be a part of it, how do you overcome that? How do you overcome like getting over the white noise?
Physically, you want to be able to move things, you want to be able to resist things and be stable, but as a human being, you also want to be able to help people to move things, right? To change the environment around you to make it better, but you also want to be stable for those around you. So to me, that's kind of what strength is. There's obviously we can go so many different directions with it.
Someone being strong doesn't have to be, literally the strongest weightlifter in the world. That just doesn't amount to strength, period. But I think just having the drive, your determination, and mainly the will to move forward, and then just basically never quit, never want to give up. I think that's what true strength is. And just happen to be able to lift a lot of weight too. Definitely helps.
Strength, based on what they said, how does that differ from some of the things that we say? Strength is a little bit more than just physical ability, right? I like some of the things he shared there about the capacity to overcome physical or mental tasks, right? To be stable, to be able to help people, to change things. Ultimately, even strong people acknowledge that strength is more than muscles and physical ability. Strength is something that we all could attain, regardless of how much we could lift, right? Strength is something that we all show, regardless on, are we running marathons and, throwing sledgehammers. So, if this is the case, so we got to kind of ask ourselves, okay, what is the Bible asking us here? Is it asking us to be strong, lift things, or is it asking us to have this other type of mental fortitude, this mental strength to overcome and to get through different things? Which one do you think the Bible is asking us to do?
I like what Bruce said, energy, because energy could be all the above. Energy is just, whatever you do requires energy.
Yeah.
So, the willingness to exert energy to get a task done, to serve God, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Go ahead.
It's about faith, which encompasses the physical and the mental and the emotional. It's like it's your faith that will steady you through conflict. Or there was one guy who talked about, basically not swaying one way or the other,
Yeah.
but
Stable.
Yeah. And I think it's faith that allows us to be stable, because we're not trusting in ourselves, we're trusting in God.
That's good. That's good. Good.
Strength is something that you build upon every day as well. It's not something that I don't believe you just wake up strong. Like if you think about marathon runners, they'll go 5 miles, then they'll do 10, and then for the build up for the big marathon. So I think it has to do with enduring and going past what you personally think you can do, and that's like what was just said, like knowing what you're connected to, and that's helping you to continue, or we would all stop in every way. And evangelism, because people tend to not, you don't always want to be around people. Like studying your Bible, you don't always want to do it, but you pull on that string.
That's good.
Talking about me,
Go ahead.
I would argue that strength is also like your ability to withstand something. You said earlier, and obviously like hope is strong.
Yeah.
But it takes a certain level of strength to withstand being thrown around.
That's true.
Like,
so Loki demonstrates strength, right?
it's strong to like withstand like pressure,
Yeah.
withstand and do the world and things like that. So
Yeah, that's great insight. True.
So So I think just expressing it in another way, it's kind of the same thing, is the ability to choose the right thing despite the circumstances, just really despite the challenges about you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay, y'all excited.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
That's how I want to piggyback on.
Uh-huh.
And then just to piggyback off of the goal of those messages, also resilience, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes you don't have control over your circumstances or the things around you, and then to be resilient and kind of rest in your faith so that you kind of get past anything that you're
Yeah. Yeah, the level of resilience to persevere and to push past. That's true. Go ahead, and then.
Yeah, I was thinking that we can let go of the fact that it's also it's physical. Loving God can let go of this of the physical part to it.
Yeah.
You know, we could pour our strength into other things, into sports, into doing this and doing that. But we could also use that strength to do things for God and demonstrate our love for Him.
That's good. Like pouring our strength into that. That's good. Go ahead.
I was going to say too, there's strength in vulnerability. If we look at 2 Corinthians 12, a sword of the flesh.
Yeah.
My grace is sufficient for you, so I'm going to your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Because when I'm weak, then I am strong. I think it's something that I know I can certainly overlook a lot.
Yeah.
And I can just kind of freeze over and be like, no, horrible, that's weak. Like, I can't, I have to boost myself up, but actually, for God, it's not.
That's so good. That's good. Why are you in my notes? That's but it's true. That is very true. And I think there's a lot of components to strength. Can I be honest with you guys? This sermon is funny. I have like 9 drafts. I have 8 different drafts of this sermon. I've had to go back and rewrite this one over and over again because as I started to study it out, I kept getting different revelations on what this is with strength, like what God is talking about here. And I finally landed on this one, and it's because of this.
For thousands of years, every morning and evening, Jewish people have prayed these well-known words as a way of expressing their devotion to God. They're called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. We're going to look at the last word, strength. The Hebrew word is ma'od, and it occurs some 300 times in the scriptures, and it doesn't actually mean strength. There is a perfectly good word for strength in Hebrew, and ma'od is not it. In fact, the Shema is one of the only places in the whole Bible where ma'od is translated as strength. So, what's up with that? The most common meaning of ma'od is very or much. It's what grammar nerds call an adverb, a word that comes alongside other words to augment their meaning. For example, in Genesis chapter 1, God looks at the world that He's made, and 6 times He calls it good. But then the climactic 7th time, He says it is ma'od good. That is, very good. Later in Genesis, in the story of Noah, the flood waters keep rising and they become ma'od powerful, or extremely powerful over the land. In the story of Cain and Abel, Cain wasn't just angry at his brother, he was ma'od angry. Or when Saul became the king of Israel, he was ma'od happy. So you can see why ma'od occurs hundreds of times in the Bible. It's a really common Hebrew word that intensifies the meaning of other words. Very this, or really that. However, biblical authors could use ma'od in ways that are unique. Like when they want to increase a word's force to total capacity, they'll say ma'od twice. So Jacob became ma'od wealthy with flocks and camels and donkeys and servants. Or the Israelite spies went to investigate the promised land and they say, the land we passed through is ma'od good. So it's pretty clear, ma'od doesn't mean strength in terms of muscle power, but rather very or much. So let's come back to the Shema, where people are called to love God with all of their heart, that is their will and affections, and with all of their soul, that is their whole life and physical being, and with all of their ma'od, that is with all of their muchness. And well, that sounds kind of funny, you also kind of get it. If ma'od can intensify any word's meaning to total capacity, then this final thing that you use to love God isn't a thing at all. It's actually everything. Loving God with your ma'od means devoting every possibility, opportunity, and capacity that you have to honoring God and loving your neighbor as yourself. It's the most wide and expansive word in the Shema. Ma'od can refer to almost anything. Which raises one last and really fascinating point. Because this word was capable of many nuances of meaning, ancient Jewish communities interpreted ma'od in the Shema in different ways. So the ancient Jewish scholars who translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek, when they came to ma'od in the Shema, they translated it with the Greek word dunamis, that is, power or strength. This is the interpretation adopted by most modern translations. But if you look at the ancient Aramaic translations of the Hebrew Bible, you'll discover that these scholars interpreted ma'od to mean wealth. Money is a concrete thing that opens up all kinds of opportunities to love God by giving away resources. And when Jesus was asked about the most important command in Scripture, he quoted the Shema, and he used 2 words to unpack the meaning of ma'od. He said, love God with all of your mind and with all of your power. Both are human capacities that can be used to love God in an infinite number of ways. So, which of these interpretations of ma'od is right? Does it mean strength, or wealth, or mind? That's the wrong question. The word ma'od doesn't limit the number of ways you can show love for God, just the opposite. The point is that everything in a person's life, every moment and every opportunity, every ability and capacity offers a chance to love and honor the one who made you. It's a call to love God with all of your muchness. And that's the meaning of strength in the Shema.
So, how does this change the definition of strength? So we talked about the whole power, strength. We talked about what the strong people define as strength is the ability to endure and persevere and to match things. And now we see this. And my friend, I call him to get input on this. He actually reads the Bible in Hebrew and in Greek. And he was like, you gotta say more like you got every time you say it. And I was like, okay, so this word I can say mood. And he was like, no, it's more right? And he's like, so it was just a very funny conversation because he literally kept repeating the word. It's just weird to hear someone say it on the time. But we were talking about this word, and this is a very unique way to define strength here, right? Now, is there any correlation between what we see here and those other things we talked about? Okay, what's the correlation? Help me. Go ahead.
So kind of like for each person, they were saying what it was for them, right? And nobody was wrong. It was just that it's everything. It's not just like my interpretation or just her interpretation. It's both put together and everybody else's. So like they were saying what it was for them.
Yeah.
And that's what they felt like it meant to be strong for them.
Yeah.
One person said physically, one person said mentally, another person said like the willingness to overcome like challenges.
Yeah.
So it was just everything.
Like this. Yeah, and I think that's the big thing here that we have to see. It's funny how he ends with this one, right? To love Lord your God with all your strength is the last of the 4 different things, because it kind of sums up everything. It's kind of like, and you need to love God with your muchness. Whatever that muchness is that you have, are you loving God with that? Loving God with your muchness, right? It's a very odd word, but it is what it is. And I think it's a simple way for us to kind of view this, and I was writing this down. I was like, what's a simple way to think about loving God with our muchness? And I think we have to ask ourselves this simple question. And we can all ask ourselves this. And literally the answer will be something different for everyone. If you ask yourself this simple question, this can help you to figure out, how do I love God with my ma'ud, with my muchness? And the question is this. What more can I do? What more can I do? What more can I do with my time to honor God? What more can I do with my talent to honor God? What more can I do with my money to honor God? What more can I do with my opportunities and my relationships to honor God? And I know it's like, okay, Ferris, that wasn't like an epic revelation there. But here's the thing, I'll ask you this. How often do you ask yourself that question? God has given us all a lot of something, right? Of something. And here's the thing, it's very easy to become satisfied with doing just enough. Right? It's very easy to become satisfied with doing just enough. And not just be satisfied with doing just enough, but to feel justified and pat yourself on the back like, hey, I came to church Sunday. Like, matter of fact, I come to church every Sunday. Right? It's real easy to kind of feel like I do a lot. I give my contribution. I am present. I come to these evenings. I even come to those extra meetings that parents be set down. Right? Like I do enough. I do enough. They are not long. Right?
That ain't long.
I do enough. And it's real easy for us to get comfortable with doing enough. But hear me on this, guys. There is no such thing as stagnation in spiritual development. I think sometimes we think that, oh, we can just, there's no stagnation. You are either moving closer to God or you're moving further away from God. There is no, I'm just plateaued. Don't allow yourself to fool yourself to think, oh, I'm just at this level. If you're not aggressively moving forward, then you're being pulled backwards. That's how spiritual development goes. But I think in our minds, a lot of times we could think, well, I'm good. I am doing just enough. But this scripture is challenging us, saying you need to love God with what? With your muchness. Which means you have to be asking yourself this question. What more can I do? What more can I do? As I'm evaluating my personal walk with God, what more can I do? Do I evaluate my relationships, my opportunities, my gifts, my talents? And am I asking, God, with all of this that you've given me, what more can I do with it? I'm doing enough. I'm doing something. What else can I do? Is there more? Or have I just gotten content with doing enough? If we are not challenging ourselves to do more, if we are not maximizing our potential and opportunities, then we are wasting them. Then we are wasting them.
Amen.
And that's it. We have to kind of view it this way. Now I know some of you are like, okay, fair, that's a lot. And I say that because I think as I was going through this, it was challenging me as a minister, as an evangelist. Parents, are you asking yourself, what more can you do with your gifts, with your talents, with your abilities? It's really easy, no matter where you are on the spectrum. I like what Chanel said, because I love this definition because it doesn't say everything else is wrong. What it says is, it's all different. And you have to ask yourself, what am I doing? I have to ask myself, parents, what am I doing? Am I maximizing my talents? Do I even know what my muchness is? Do I know what God has gifted me in? Do I see my opportunities? Am I looking at the things that God is blessing with, the relationships that I have? Am I leveraging everything that I have to bring more glory and honor to God?
Amen.
Or am I leveraging everything I have to bring more glory and honor to myself? Because if you're not intentionally asking, am I doing this for God? You are doing it for yourself. Point blank, period. Like, that is a big thing we have to own. If we're not intentionally asking, am I putting this before God? This job that I have, this skill that I have, this ability that I have, this opportunity that I have. I am intentionally taking this thing because I am aware and conscious of what God has given me. And I am putting it before God. Amen. But if you're not doing that, you're obviously putting it before yourself. And you're asking yourself, because you are asking yourself, how do I benefit from this? I know you're asking. You ask something about your job when you wake up in the morning and you don't want to go. You know what you think about? I got to pay that bill. Right? So I got to go. Right? I got to do what I have to do because I got to take care of who? Me. But the question is, do you wake up thinking, okay, I got to go to this job. How can I glorify God with this job?
Right.
Okay, I gotta go pick up my kids to do this. How do I glorify God with this trip?
Amen.
How do I glorify God with this? How do I glorify God with this situation or opportunity? And I even dare say, you should ask, how do I glorify God with this problem? Sometimes we only look at like, how do I glorify God with this opportunity? A good thing. But some of us don't always think about good things, right? What we see a lot of times are, if you're like me, I see the problems a lot. It's really easy for me to see a negative thing. And I have to sometimes switch and ask myself that question. How do I glorify God with this problem? How do I leverage this to bring God glory?
Amen.
To make his name known on earth?
Amen.
You know, it's, you know, if we're, when you're comfortable with the bare minimum, right, in your faith, it only takes one step out of your comfort zone to expose how weak you are spiritually. Like when you're comfortable and you in your mind kind of plateaued, because like I said, you never plateau. You're either going forward or backwards spiritually. But in your mind, when you're not challenging yourself, right? You're not putting more weights on the bar. You're just like, oh, I can lift this and I'm good with this because at least I'm doing this. I'm looking at other people and they ain't even doing this, so I'm doing it. So I'm good, right?
Right.
That's what we tend to do. I'm lifting this much, but we don't add any more weight to it. We don't put anything else on there. We just feel comfortable with my whatever pounds that I'm lifting. And then all of a sudden someone puts some more weight on you, and then what happens?
You drop it.
You're like, yo, this is what I signed up for. It's not, this is not what I said. This is not the plan. It only takes one step out of your comfort zone to show how weak you are spiritually. This is why the Bible doesn't call us to get comfortable.
Amen.
You know, because it's only when we step out of the comfort zone are we able to develop and grow more. You know, he says here, love the Lord your God with all your strength and all your muchness. And I wanted this to be a more practical lesson, so there's a couple things I wanted you guys to ask yourselves. But there's some things that I know I've had to do to even show me, like, where am I at spiritually? How am I doing spiritually? You know, it was funny, we're trying to do this, me and my wife, we were doing this fast recently, and you ever fast, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of the fast, and you know, you wake up, you're mindful of the fast, and you start the day off. I'm fasting, which therefore means I'm not eating and I'm not drinking until such and such time, right? And then all of a sudden you go through your day and you're moving, you're doing things, and then all of a sudden next thing you realize, all of a sudden you ate a whole sandwich, like, and you're like, how did this happen? That's just me, right?
No, it's not just you.
It's not just me. I'm the only one that did that. Right?
No.
You know, and I felt horrible. I was like, how did, like, I didn't even think about it until after I ate it.
Right.
Like, it was gone. Like, it was gone. Like, I was about to go to the bathroom gone. Like, you know, I'd be like, oh, I ate something. Like, you know, how did this happen? You know, and it wasn't even conscious of it. And I remember I was confessing this to a friend of mine, and he was like, Paris, when's the last time you fasted? I was like, I haven't fasted really in a while. I just did this because it came up. My wife was talking about it, chimed in. And he was like, well, that just shows how you're just not strong in that area. And he's like, that might even expose more other areas where you're just not conscious of in your spiritual development. I'm like, okay, well, wow. I think this was a good conversation. How do we go here? You know, like, you know, and he starts deep diving into my psychology and my spiritual well-being. You know, you got friends like that do that. They're annoying. I call them maybe once a month. You know what I mean? Like, and it was really good retrospect, because it did. I had to step back and ask myself, Paris, do you challenge yourself like this? Like, you don't like fasting. And I forgot, there was a point in time in my spiritual development when I was a young Christian where a brother was like, you should fast every week. And you should make that something that you do. Every week, that should be a part of your, and I did it for a year. Every day, not every day. One day out the week, okay? Just do this every day. One day out the week. I did it, and it helped develop a muscle in me where I was really conscious of denying myself the things and focusing on the right things, right? Denying myself this so I can focus on this. And spending time where I was training that in my body. But just like anything, once you stop training, what happens?
Go right back to where you were.
Man, and matter of fact, you probably do weaker than you were initially, right? And then actually I realized that. I was like, what? I can't even think. And I'll be honest, I woke up at 6, I ate that sandwich at 8, That was bad. Like, that was really bad. I was like, that was even like, it wasn't even like lunch. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I made the sandwich. I didn't even think. I made the sandwich. Wasn't even thinking straight. You know, and this just shows how, like, man, you lose it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't use it, you lose it. Right? And it's the same thing spiritual, our spiritual development. If we're not mindful of these things, we have to challenge ourselves to have fasting, to really be reading in our Bibles. Challenge us to go beyond just, let me have a 5-minute prayer. Like, really, sometimes challenge yourself, let me pray.
It's true.
For real. Let me spend some time on my knees and praying to God. Having that humble posture. Let me do that. Like, how often do you do that? How often do you get on your knees and pray to God for longer than 3 minutes? How often do you really sit down? Like, I really want to read a book of the Bible. I'm just going to sit down and read it. I'm going to read it. Then challenge yourself to do that. I'm going to go out and share my faith. I'm going to plan to share my faith. Sometimes you do these things and it'll expose to you how you have not been doing it.
Right.
Your muscle is not where you could have been or should have been in some of these areas. You know, I had to look at myself, even as my role as a minister and evangelist, and ask myself the simple question: parents, are you maximizing it? Or have I settled? You know, found a groove, you kind of get in it. You know, plug and play. Everything in our lives is very easy to make it into a routine.
Right.
And lose its significance. Everything, we all have this. What's the next growth for me as a leader? I had to ask myself that. What's my next step as a leader? What am I thinking about that? How can I leverage what God has given me to bring him more glory on earth? What opportunities do I have to display God's glory here on earth?
Amen.
You have to ask yourselves that question. What opportunities has God given you? Why is this important? Ephesians 5:15. It says this in Ephesians 5. It says, be careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of what?
Every opportunity.
Every opportunity, because these days are evil.
Yes.
And he's like, look, if you are not, and we've talked about this. I've broken this down before, you know, in different sermons when we talk about this scripture. Y'all know I love this scripture. But it challenges you to do not live as unwise, but wise.
Right.
And I talked about how this is like saying, don't live unconsciously, but live consciously.
Amen.
Asking yourself, how can I leverage this opportunity to bring God glory?
Amen.
A lot of times we live unconsciously. We're just on autopilot.
Right.
Just getting by this routine. I'm just going. I'm chugging through it.
Right.
And you're not conscious. How can I maximize? What more can I do? What more can I do with my life? Right. And we got to ask that for us as a church. What more can we do? Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your hearts to the Lord, always giving thanks to God the Father for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. And look, it says, speaking to one another in psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit. Sing and make music from your hearts to the Lord. This is, yes, it's talking about singing, but what he's really saying is that our lives should be a song to people, pointing them to God. Our lives should be a song to people, pointing them to God, understanding how we are leveraging all of our opportunities to bring glory to God. And we have to ask ourselves, am I doing that? Is my life a song to people? That when they see me, they see God. When my brother or sister struggling, and they see me, they hear a song from the Lord. Do we point people back to God? Because we're conscious of our opportunities. And this isn't just people who are outside and don't really know us and our friends. How about your spouse, your children, the people in your house? Are they hearing a beautiful spiritual song? Because you're living consciously, aware of what God is pointing you to. You know the famous quote, they say, your life may be the only Bible someone may ever read, right? There's this poem that I really love. It's a really good poem. It was written by this woman. she went and she spent her life, she went through a situation where she was like, I just feel like I'm doing stuff for God, but I'm not living to my fullest extent. And so she gave up everything. She went and lived amongst the poor. And was like, I just want to be with them and I want to serve the poor. And this is the life that I'm going to live. She lived this life for about 15 years. And then here's the poem. It says, Christ has no body now but yours.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, and the lyrics of this is just so heavy. And I'm going to read this poem to you. It says, Christ has no body now but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which he looks, compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the feet. Yours are the eyes. You are his body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. And I think sometimes we forget that we are the living representations of Christ here on earth.
Yes, sir.
That's it. That's what we signed up for.
Yeah.
So we have to ask ourselves every day with every opportunity, am I leveraging this to bring God glory? Your life matters. Your muchness matters. What you do and what you don't do matters. It all matters. And I really love what Amanda shared, because sometimes we can look at things and be like, I don't have strength. I don't have strength. I don't have anything. And I think sometimes we got to be able to pull back and ask ourselves, who gives us strength? Right? It doesn't come from within.
Right.
Matter of fact, like I said before, about asking, not just looking at the opportunities, but also looking at your problems and saying, how can I leverage to bring God glory? Our weaknesses bring God glory. And so we're going to have a discussion question, but I want to play a song that really pertains to this poem. It's really, they put it in song form. But I want you to reflect on the words, and I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you have this mindset? Yes, Christ has a body. He's in heaven. He has his body. He's in heaven. Right? That happened. He resurrected physically. We see that. But metaphorically, what this is saying is very powerful. And we can't miss that. And so I want us to reflect on this, and then we'll go on to our discussion question.
Do you remember how the words go to the song that we did today?
Christ has no body but yours.
Christ has no body now but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he sees. Yours are the feet with which he walks. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands.
question, and then you can pray out within your group or whoever you decide to keep up with. There is a timer. We'll give 10 minutes for this. There's a 5-minute timer to let you know, like, hey, it's about to wrap up. Once it hits the second